What's up, my fellow actors? We are live. Welcome to the Acting Career Center. We haven't done a live chat in a long time, so I felt like today was a good day because we had just hit 50,000 subscribers on the channel, which is all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for watching and subscribing and being a part of this community and helping each other out because, like I say in the end of all of my YouTube videos, I hope to see you on set one day. That's what this whole channel is all about. So again, thank you all so much for being part of this channel and subscribing. Before we get started, I just want to say if anybody here is brand new, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, or if you're watching this after the fact, if you're watching this after our live viewing and watching the replay, if this is your first time, then first of all, welcome. Second of all, if you're looking to improve your auditions, which I know a lot of actors are trying to do, in fact, probably all actors are trying to do, then I've actually put together a 10-step audition preparation guide that I call my audition cheat sheet, and it's totally free. You can download it from my website. The link is down in the description of this video, or you can just go to actingcareercenter.com and go to the cheat sheet page and download that cheat sheet. All right, great. Why don't we get right to the Q&A, because I know you guys have a lot of questions. There's already 76 people on this live. So I know some people have already started asking questions in the chat before we started going live, so I'm going to get to those questions first, and then we'll just kind of try to work our way down the entire list. Okay. So first of all, thank you all for joining. Let's get right to the questions. I know there are a couple questions that have already come up multiple times, and I know are going to come up a lot throughout the entire time that we do this Q&A. So I'm going to answer them first, and then as they come up later, I'll just tell people to watch the replay if they didn't catch it in the beginning. Okay, the first question I know is a popular one, especially for those of you who don't live in the United States, because I live here in the United States, and there are actors that are subscribed to my channel that live in other countries, in other continents, and pretty far away. And I know the question comes up of how an actor who lives in a different location can work on American projects, American movies and TV shows. And here's the thing. It's going to be very, very difficult to audition for an American project while living in another country. There's many roadblocks. One of the biggest ones is employment law. There are laws here in the U.S. that say you have to either be a citizen, or you have to be a permanent resident, or have a work visa in order to work in the U.S. And this doesn't apply just to acting, guys. This is for any job in the U.S., whether you want to be a waiter, whether you want to be an IT person, whether you want to be a doctor or an actor. Like, all of these are jobs. And if you want to work in the United States, there are employment rules that you have to go through, and if you're not a citizen, or you're not a permanent resident, or you don't have a work visa, then you're not allowed to work in the U.S. And then I know the question is going to be, how do I get a work visa? Unfortunately, I don't know about the immigration process. I do know that the most popular work visa for actors is called the O1 visa. The letter O, the number 1 visa. You can research that visa on your own of how to get that. But here's the other thing. Before you go out and try to do everything you can to get that visa, the other thing you need to understand is that even if you do have that work visa, you also still need to be in the U.S. You really can't audition while living in another country, especially for the shows that are made here in the U.S. The problem here is that you got to understand that productions are a business. Movie productions and TV productions are a business, and they're trying to save money when they try to hire people. So it makes more sense for them to hire someone who lives in the city that the production is happening, rather than hire someone who lives far away. Let me just give you an example. If you, for instance, if you lived in France and you have a restaurant and you're hiring waiters and waitresses, and I want to apply for your restaurant and I live in America, you would say, well, hold on, why would I hire you if you live in America when I can find a waiter or waitress that lives in my country or in my city, right? It's the same thing with acting. They want to save money because they don't want to spend the money to fly someone over in order to work on their job. this is this doesn't just apply to people who live outside the United States. This also applies to people who live in the US. This is the whole reason why I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. In the US, Los Angeles, New York, and Atlanta are the three biggest production markets in this country. That means the most movies and TV shows are made in these three cities. Because of that, people, actors or aspiring actors, move to these cities all the time because they know that productions are primarily looking for people who live in these three markets, right? Who live in these three cities because they don't want to spend the money to fly people in from other cities. This applies to people in the US as well. So biggest my biggest recommendation for people who live in other countries is just try to do whatever you can in your country first, or in your city first. And this applies to people in the US at all as well who don't live in New York or LA or Atlanta. Try to do as much as you can in your location, and then eventually see if you can get the resources to move to a place that has more opportunities. And one more thing I want to say is that you don't have to come to the US. You don't have to go to LA. You don't have to go to New York or Atlanta. Movies are made all over the world, especially when people ask about Hollywood, the quote unquote Hollywood. Hollywood is not just a location in the US. Hollywood is an entire industry. Hollywood exists in the entire world. For example, the Star Wars movies, we consider those Hollywood movies, right? Star Wars movies are mostly made in the UK, right? The Harry Potter movies were all made in the UK. The James Bond movies are made in the UK. The Queen's Gambit, which was one of the most popular shows on Netflix last year, was made in Germany. Oh, it was shot in Berlin, right? So, and there are many, many other examples of shows and movies that are made in other locations around the world. So it doesn't just happen in the U.S. That being said, a lot of them are made in the U.S., and that's why people move here all the time. Okay, so that's my answer about people living in other countries wanting to pursue acting in the United States. It's very hard to do unless you are here and you have the work visa allowing you to work in this industry. Okay. Number two, the question that comes up a lot is how do I get an agent? And this is a really broad question, and I do have a video about 4 ways to get an agent on my channel. You could search for that video on my channel, and that goes into much more in depth about each of the ways that I talk about. But the main thing I want to tell you is that if you haven't taken any acting classes yet, then you shouldn't be looking for an agent yet. Okay, you need to get training. You need to get good at your craft before you call yourself a professional actor. Basically, when you decide that you want to get an agent, you're trying to say, hey, I want to be a professional actor now. But if you've never done any of it before, not even any training, then you're not at the level to say that you're ready to become a professional actor. And that leads me to the best way to get an agent, in my opinion, which is how I got my first agent, is through your network. And I got my agent through acting classes, because in my acting classes, one of my fellow students had an agent and she recommended me to apply for her agency. Right? So this is the best way in terms of the 4 different ways to get an agent. I won't get into all 4 now, but they're in that video. But the number one way is through your acting classes, your local acting classes, because there are agents all over the world, thousands of agents in every city, okay? The best agents to get are the ones that are local to you. And if you live in a small town, maybe there aren't agents in your town, but the nearest big city probably has a talent agency. You're going to want to look for the ones close to you. And the people that are going to know about those agents are the acting teachers that are local to your city or your state or whoever's close to you. I can tell you about the agents that are in my city in Atlanta, but that's not going to help you if you don't live in Atlanta, right? Okay, so those are my quick answers about living in another country and how to get an agent. Let's start to get to some of the other questions here. All right, so Philip was asking about reading books and watching classes online, and if those count as acting classes that go on a resume. And that's a really good question. It depends. First of all, books don't go on a resume. Reading acting books doesn't go on a resume. However, online acting classes can go on a resume, but it depends what type of classes they are. If they are just watching videos, like you watching my YouTube videos, that isn't an acting class. That's a one-way conversation. You're watching, but there's no feedback. What counts as a class that you can put on a resume is when you are able to perform in front of a teacher. They're able to watch you and they can give you feedback live, right? So if you have a class where you're doing it via Zoom and that teacher is watching you live, you get to perform a scene and then they get to critique you and tell you what you did well and what you can improve, and then you get to perform again, right? That is a real acting class that you can put on a resume. But if it's just watching videos, that really doesn't count as putting it on a resume. I mean, think about it. It's like if I were to watch some videos online about karate, does that mean I can tell people that I've taken a karate class? Not really, right? I really need to be in a karate dojo and learn from a teacher and have them correct what I'm doing wrong for me to say that I've taken a real class. All right, cool. Let's move on. So, okay, so Xavier is asking about living in New York and how to get a work permit as a minor. So you're an 11-year-old actor, you're turning 12 this month, and that's a great question because yes, it's true. Minors under anyone under 18 in the U.S. in order to act, there are also employment laws for people under 18. I'm going to share a link for you, Xavier, here in the chat. It's a website, the SAG-AFTRA website, which is the actors union here in the U.S., has there are different rules in every state for employment law for minors. Okay, so the state statutes are listed on the SAG-AFTRA website, and I'm pasting that link into the chat right now. So if you see that link, that's going to have all the different rules for minors to get into acting in every state. So you just have to look up your state of New York and see what it is for you, okay? And that goes for anybody else who's interested in that. Just look up your state and find out what it is for you. If you live in another country, that's a totally different ballgame. I wouldn't know. You'll have to find out from your own city or state what the rules are. All right, great. So Riri is asking, is it possible to take a headshot with an iPhone? And if it's possible, do you have any tips? Well, yes, it is possible. I mean, you could search YouTube videos on how to take a headshot with an iPhone. But you do need to understand that a headshot isn't is not just a picture that makes you look pretty or makes you look handsome. A headshot is a marketing tool for actors. There are very strategic things that need to happen with a headshot. And this is one of the reasons why I do recommend people go to a professional headshot photographer that works with actors, because they're going to be able to help you with the strategic element of a headshot specifically for the acting profession. Because an actor's headshot is supposed to help you get acting roles, help casting directors or the people making casting decisions picture you in the roles that they are casting. And there are certain things that you want to do with headshots. So it's not just about getting a good looking picture, but making sure that you do all those extra things. We talk about this a lot in my business of acting workshop that I do every few months. If you're interested in my workshops, you can check them out on my website, actingcareercenter.com. But just to get into like some specifics about the headshots, you can take a headshot with your iPhone, but just be honest with yourself when you look at the headshot and look at other professional actors' headshots and ask yourself, do they stack up? Do they measure up to the other professional actors? Because if they don't and they look amateur, then you are perceived as amateur by agents and by casting directors. And you got to understand that agents and casting directors are looking through thousands of headshots all the time. And it's easy for them to dismiss people when they look at something that doesn't look professional, because the perception then is that you may be unprofessional. Now, that being said, if you can get a really professional looking headshot through your iPhone, then by all means use it. I'm not here to tell anybody that you have to go spend money if you don't need to. Okay, so that's my answer for headshots and shooting them with an iPhone. All right, so TBH asks, where I should be in terms of acting jobs before I get an agent. Should I have worked on a feature film? How many credits should I have? Great question. And the answer to this, like the answer to many of these questions today, is going to be it depends. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on what market you're in. If you're in a smaller market, like I was when I lived in Cleveland, Ohio, they're not going to want me to be in a feature film on my resume because there are no feature films that shoot in Cleveland, Ohio, maybe once a year. So it's very unrealistic for the agencies to expect an actor to have a feature film on their resume. That being said, now if you are in a bigger market like Los Angeles, well, then the agents there are going to want people to have feature film credits, TV show credits, and all those things in order to consider them. So that's a big consideration. Another consideration is that everybody's different, right? Everybody progresses differently in terms of this career. So a big thing that you should consider when you're submitting to an agent is, or the one thing that they're going to consider when you're submitting to them is whether or not that you fit into their roster. Understand that an agent's roster is kind of like let's just say like Walmart. Walmart is a big box store, right? Those of you who don't know Walmart, it's a store that has everything. Think about like Amazon, right? Amazon's a good example because it's an online store. Amazon doesn't just carry one product or two products. They carry a wide variety, right? Amazon wants to be known as the place that you can go to shop where you can buy anything, right? They want you to think about Amazon to buy anything. Agencies are very similar in this way in terms of actors. An agency wants a casting director to think about them no matter what type of actor they're looking for. So they're trying to have a very diverse group of actors. Now, when you apply to an agent, one of the things the agents look for is to see if there are people of your quote unquote type on their roster already. And if they already have 10 or 20 people that look like you on their roster, they're less likely to consider you. But if they don't have very many people that look like you on their roster, then they're more likely to consider you. So because of that, the consideration of like how many credits you should have before you apply to an agency, like all of those things, there's no universal answer to that. Okay, so my best advice is to, get to the point where you feel like you are ready to audition for professional roles. And that means you should already have done some less than professional, right? Student films, indie films, unpaid projects, plays. You should have some of this experience on your resume and on a demo reel so that you are ready to go to start auditioning for paid projects. And then at that point, then you can start applying for agencies and not really worry about what the other types of credits you have yet. And then hopefully, that will help you get in the door. If not, then start to continue to build your resume on top of that. Try to get into movies and shows on your own before you start applying to agents. All right? Okay. So, Lisa is asking, what should you do when you can't afford acting classes? And that is a good question, too. Many things that you can do as far as like learning about the career. Because learning about the business side of acting and the career is super important. It's probably just as important, if not more important, in the beginning of your career to really understand how the business works and the industry works. So you can do that with books. You don't have to go to a class to necessarily learn about that. And books are a lot cheaper, right? You can get a book for $5, $10, $15. A couple of the books that I recommend are The Actor's Life by Jenna Fisher. Jenna Fisher, you know as Pam Beasley from The Office, right? And Self-Management for Actors by Bonnie Gillespie. So these two are both excellent books for actors to really understand the business and how the business works and what it really takes to build this career, because this career takes a lot, and you really got to be in it for the long haul, right? Okay, so books is one thing. What else can you do if you can't afford acting classes? Well, another thing, a way that I've seen people get into acting classes without paying for them is bartering for the classes. And what that means is offering services that you can perform that you can help out the acting teachers or the acting schools in exchange for classes. For instance, I have friends that have offered a cleaning service for the school, so they would help clean and sweep and mop the school in exchange for classes. Or I know people that have web design skills that help the acting teacher design the class website and in exchange for classes. I have people that are photographers and offered to help take marketing photos for the website in exchange for acting classes. Those are ways that you could potentially get into classes. Another thing you can do is, as a lot of acting classes offer one class for free. I know a lot of the acting classes that I've attended in the past offer a class for free to watch the class and to decide if you want to join it or not. And this obviously isn't something that you want to do long term, but in the short term, while you don't have money, you can find as many classes as you can that are offering these one-time audit to watch a class for free, to sit in on as a bunch of those. If you find 10 of those, then you have 10 classes that you get to sit in on. A lot of those may not necessarily allow you to participate in the class, you just get to observe, but that's better than nothing, right? And hopefully in the future, when you do have the money, you'll also know which of those 10 classes that you really liked when you observed, and those are the classes that you would want to end up joining. Okay, all right, great. Let's move on. Oh, your other question was when your location limits your resources. That's another great question, but one of the silver linings of COVID and what happened with the shutdown is a lot of classes ended up going virtual. And even though once everything kind of goes back to normal, I do expect classes to go back to in-person classes. I still think a lot of those classes are going to also allow the virtual option as well. So even if there's nothing in your location, you can take classes that are offered in Atlanta, that are offered in New York, that are offered in Los Angeles, right? So those are solid options while you are living somewhere else. All right. Are there theaters and acting classes, or is that another thing? For example, if I go to an acting class, am I going to play in theaters or in front of cameras for practice? I'm not really understanding that question, but I do want to say that if you get an opportunity to act in plays, if you get an opportunity to do theater classes, to do drama classes, to learn how to do stage acting, that even if your end goal is to act in film and television, theater is a great training ground, and there's nothing better than getting that great theatrical training, work acting in plays, in order to improve your acting for the future. Look at there are a lot of big time celebrities right now who are, movie stars and TV stars. They all got their start in theater. And they were accomplished theater actors before getting into film and television. So don't think that in order to pursue film and TV that you shouldn't do any theater. I actually encourage the opposite. I think you should do a lot of theater if you have the opportunity in order to train yourself, in order to get better. That's another thing. That's something to put on your resume. I've heard a lot of casting directors and talent agents say they love it when they see people that have theater training on their resume and that they've done plays, because they know those people have what it takes to get, to do more in this acting profession. Okay. All right. So moving on. Do I have any good acting YouTubers that I recommend? Yeah, I've interviewed a couple of them here on my channel. Kristen Henry King is one YouTuber. That's the name of her channel, Kristen Henry King. And another one is Pippa Moss. Pippa Moss is in the UK. So those of you that are in the UK or in Europe, she's someone that you might be interested in following because she has information that would be more pertinent to that part of the world. Okay, and there are quite a few others as well. I know there are some, and I can't think of their names off the top of my head. There are some people in Canada. There's someone in Australia. So there are, if you search for it on YouTube, you should be able to find some of these other YouTubers that are in other markets. All right. Let's see. Moving on. Okay, Summer is asking about getting your parents to let you get an agent and audition for roles. Look, this is not something that I can really, I don't know how to help you with this or tell you how to talk to your parents about acting. This is a conversation that you're just going to have with your parents, and every family is different, and dynamics are different between kids and their parents. So there's no rule or there's no formula of how to do this. One thing I would say is that you should, no matter what age you are, if you're still in school, you should 100% focus on your studies first and view acting as an extracurricular on top of your school, on top of your education. I do not recommend anybody dropping out of school to pursue acting. So here in the United States, union rules, and it's a whole can of worms to get into what the union is and how this applies. But I just want to say that union rules for movies and television shows states that you do have to be in good standing in your school with good grades before you can be hired for a movie or a television show. So those people who are still in school who have bad grades, it's in your best interest to get your grades up, to get good grades in order to audition for movies and television shows. Okay? All right. Victoria is asking, after you've started going to acting classes, when should be the right time to get a headshot? Similar to my answer with as far as getting an agent, there's no set timeline. You know, everybody's going to be different. It's going to be between you and your acting teacher when the two of you decide, it's time for you to move up and to start auditioning, and when you think you're ready to start auditioning for professional projects, because that's really what a headshot is to use that to either get an agent or to use that to self-submit to start auditioning for roles. All right, so there's not really a set timeline. You could, like the person asking before about using an iPhone to take a photo, you could start by getting using your own phone or using a camera that you or your friends have to take a starter headshot before you go to a professional. And that way you're not spending a lot of money yet, because you got to understand that you don't want to take a headshot too early, because you may not be ready. You may not exactly understand what a headshot is used for at that point in your career, and that could end up just wasting money. And those headshots may not actually be useful, even though you went to a professional, because those could be good pictures, but they may not necessarily be good headshots that are useful in a marketing standpoint for your acting career. Okay. So again, having a conversation with your acting teacher, that's the best advice that I can give, and determine between the two of you when the best time is to start getting your headshots. All right. Which acting? I'm guessing that question is which acting class should I take? That's really up to you. If you've never taken an acting class, I think a technique class, which is the foundations of acting, is probably the most important. For me, it was the Meisner technique, but there are many different acting techniques out there: Meisner, Chubbuck, Stanislavski, method acting. I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but there are a ton of them. You should research acting techniques, look at which ones that you think are you probably connect to the most, and then and research those classes and see if there is any in your area. And also, like I said before, take advantage of the acting classes that offer you a free class to sit in on, and check those out. All right. So another question of how can I find an agent? If you are tuning in a little bit late, I've already answered a couple of these questions. If I skip your question, that's because I've answered it in the beginning of this video. So you'll just wait till this live stream is over, and then in a couple hours, or maybe by tomorrow, this video, the replay will be up live, or will be up on YouTube, and you can just watch it from the beginning and see all those answers that I answered that you may have missed. Okay. All right. Another question about how to get an agent. So yeah, we already answered that one. Jackie, you're asking about the Backstage app, and it's difficult to fill out. I've never used the Backstage app. I know I've only used Backstage on the computer. So if the app is giving you issues, you may want to just access your Backstage account on the computer and see if that works. I'm sorry, I can't really give you any suggestions on the app because I've never used it. Why is this age restricted? I'm not sure what you mean by the YouTube channel is age restricted. I don't think it is. All right. So, what age you started acting? If you're asking me what age I started acting, excuse me, let me take a sip. You can tell I'm a Jurassic Park fan because I got this Jurassic Park mug, and in the background of all of my YouTube videos, I have that quote from Ian Malcolm hanging up on the wall. So, what age I started acting? I actually started acting at 26, and this is a great question because I do want people to understand that a lot of people think that they may be too old to start their acting career, and I don't think there's ever an age where you're too old to start acting. Like I said, I started at 26. I know people that started in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and even older. I give an example in one of my YouTube videos about a woman who started her acting career in her 80s and then booked a role, I think when she was 89 or 90, in Marvel's Black Panther. So she started much, much later in her life and still was able to get her career started. So there's no age limit to when you should start acting. If you have the passion for it and you're ready to put in the work, to work really hard in order to pursue this career, then you can start at any age. All right. So, are there any other experienced actors on here other than our host, Kurt Yu? I don't know. Hopefully there are some other actors here that are answering questions in the chat. That would be great. How can I become an American actor if I'm not an American? We kind of answered that question in the beginning. If you go back to the beginning and watch, you'll get to that question. Do I have to live anywhere specific and try to get an agent and try to find a place to try out for an audition? You don't have to live anywhere specific because like I said, there are agents all over the country in the U.S. and all over the world, especially in the major cities. So if you live in a small town, then maybe there's not going to be an agent in your city, but there should be agencies in most major cities. So looking for an agent in your city or in the closest big city is going to be your best bet. Now, that being said, you do it does benefit you to live where the work is. So where the work that you're trying to get is. I know most actors want to get into movies and TV shows, right? And because of that, that's why a lot of actors move to Los Angeles or they move to Atlanta or they move to New York because that's where most of the movies and TV shows are being made. That's why I moved to Atlanta 5 years ago. If you watch my moving to Atlanta video, I gave this example. When I lived in Cleveland, Ohio, even though I had an agent in Cleveland, Ohio, even though I had an agent, on average I would get one, sometimes zero auditions for movies and television shows throughout an entire year. Okay? That's because in my region where I lived, there were no movies or TV shows that filmed in that region. When I moved to Atlanta and got an agent in Atlanta, all of a sudden I started getting over 100 movies and TV shows, or over 100 auditions for movies and TV shows every single year. Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for the live chat, or for the, yeah, I didn't even know that that was a thing. And I can't even see who sent it. But thank you so much for that super chat, guys. But back to my answer. Being in the city where all of these productions are taking place, that definitely helps you in terms of location. Okay, because we had talked about in the beginning, productions want to save money. So they don't want to hire people that live far away because then they have to pay for their flight and they have to pay for their hotel and all those things. They prefer to hire people that live in the city where the productions are taking place. All right, cool. Oh, Donnie G, I can shout you out. Oh, Donnie, you actually have a comment here. Thanks for your time. I have years of experience in acting. I want to get into a TV show or film. I live in Missouri. What do I do? Because this acting agency won't hit me back. Can we talk privately? I do offer private coaching if you go to my website, actingcareercenter.com. You can book a private coaching session with me. That does cost money because I just don't have the time to have private coaching sessions for every single person. I have over 50,000 people here on YouTube and over 15,000 people on my email list. So I get a lot of questions, and it's hard to get into a private conversation. But if you want to book a private coaching session with me via Zoom, I am available for that. And to answer your question, though, since you live in Missouri, living in Missouri, and maybe you're in St. Louis or in a different city in Missouri, but it's similar to where I lived in Cleveland, Ohio, right? And we just kind of talked about that. Your market is kind of going to dictate what opportunities are going to be most available to you. And like I said, in Cleveland, Ohio, because very few movies and TV shows filmed in that market, there just weren't audition opportunities for that. Until I moved to a bigger market in Atlanta, that's when I started getting the opportunities. So that's going to be it's really tough to say, and you may try to get an agent in a bigger market, but they're going to tell you that we want you to live here before we can represent you. So there's not really much leeway there. There's hard. It's a hard bridge to cross. I guess that's the right metaphor, because it comes down to ultimately it comes down to money. Ultimately, it comes down to the productions not wanting to hire people that live far away. All right, cool. Let's move on. Oh, great. There's another super chat. That's amazing. Todd, thank you so much for the super chat. You're saying, hey, most casting calls, even student films, want demo reels. Can I film myself acting, or must I keep trying to find work and make a reel? I have lighting, camera, editing skills. Absolutely, Todd. And this goes to everybody else. Absolutely, film yourself. I want everyone to take control of your careers. If nobody is hiring you, or if there are no acting opportunities where you can audition for something, write your own scripts and film them yourself. Get together with other actors, either in your acting classes or just other people that you know that are interested in acting, and write your own little short film. It doesn't have to be, a 2-hour movie. Write a little 5-minute short film and film it yourself. You can enter that into festivals, and then there are people who have done that themselves and then won best acting awards in their festivals after they wrote and filmed their own short film. And then that's a huge thing to put on your resume, right? Hey, not only can I act, but I can also write and I can direct, and I've won an acting award and my films have gotten into a festival. Like, all of those things are great things to have on your resume. Guys, look, this thing is your best friend as an actor, especially if you don't have experience, because you don't have to have a fancy camera. A lot of really great professional looking short films have been made just with a cell phone. So definitely do what you can. You don't even have to necessarily write an entire movie, short film. You can just write a little quick short scene for yourself, Todd, and use that and put that on a resume. You can even record it in like a self-taping type of environment, just in a taping room, rather than doing an entire scene. But that's totally up to you. But yeah, to answer your question, definitely everybody I would recommend. If you don't have experience, why don't you create your own experience? Create your own projects. All right, cool. Moving on. Great questions, both of you guys. All right. Chris has a question about finding monologues and finding good monologues, and what should I do to what should I be looking out for? First of all, I have a video that I put out recently where I talk about how monologues are not the greatest things for actors who are trying to break into film and TV. In my almost 13 years now as a working professional actor, nobody has ever asked me to perform a monologue outside of the classroom. I've done some monologues in class, but no agent or casting director or director or producer, nobody's ever asked me to perform a monologue. So, what do I think is more important or better for an actor than a monologue? And that's a scene. Practice a scene. Whenever you get an audition for a movie or a television show, they're going to give you a scene to perform, not a monologue. And what's the difference? The difference is there's other characters in the scene. they want to see not only your ability to say your lines and act out your dialogue, but they want to be able to see how you react to other characters. This is acting. Acting is reacting and being able to play off of other characters. That's just as important as you being able to say your lines. This is why I say acting classes are so important, because just acting at home and doing monologues is not really going to teach you how to act. How are you going to practice all of the stuff where you need other people in a scene? You can't practice that by yourself. That's why being in a class with other actors is really going to help you out. So practice your monologues if you want on your own, but that should not be the only thing you practice. All right, now as far as looking for good monologues, Backstage has a good monologue database. Let me see if I can get that for you. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to look it up, and then I'll post that link into the chat as well. It's called the Monologuer. Here we go. All right, I'm pasting that Backstage link into the chat as well. Here you go. So that's a something that you can use to find monologues, but like I said, it's better to find a scene. So go through any play or a movie script or a TV show script. Here's a good place to find free movie scripts. It's scriptslug.com. I'm going to paste that link into the chat as well. You can find full movie scripts on scriptslug.com. Go through that script, find a nice little scene that's, 30 seconds to a minute long, and use that to practice, not only saying your lines, but listening and responding to the other characters. All right? Great. Wow, thank you so much, guys, for these live chats. Jamie is asking, what do you do if you get a one-line side with no context? That's a great question. And that happens quite a bit, especially when you're just getting started in this career. You're getting, thank you so much for the super chat, Jamie. When you're getting started, you're not going to be getting big roles. Oftentimes, you're getting the smaller characters, and sometimes you're just getting one line. One of the big ways to work on just one-line auditions is especially if they're allowing a self-tape, then you can send in multiple takes, right? You can give in one take where you make one choice and give them a second take or even a third take where you're making different choices, okay? The point of it here is not to try to blow them away with your acting. A lot of times the one-line auditions are just, here's your coffee, sir. You're not going to try to be crying or screaming or anything like that. That would look crazy for the one-line audition, right? So, well, I'm getting a YouTube error. Hopefully I'm still getting through to you guys. Okay. Donnie, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. But yeah, so for the one-line auditions, it's about understanding the character, okay? Understanding how much the character fits into the story and using that. And if you, like you said, if you don't have any context, then really try to create the context on your own. Give yourself a backstory where that would make sense for you to say that character's lines, and then give yourself 2 or 3 different backstories so you have different choices that you can make and give them those options. That's how I approach it when I get a one-line audition. All right, great. Donnie, again, thanks again for the super chat. You said you're enrolling in the Zoom session. That's really great to hear. All right. Let's see. How were you able to find an agent? Avery is asking. So when I got my first agent, it was through acting class. I was in class for a while, and then one of my acting classmates who had an agent, she recommended me to her agent, and that's how I got my first agent. And I think that's the best way to get an agent, is through a referral, either by another acting classmate or through one of your acting teachers. Because look, acting agencies get submissions from actors. They get hundreds or even thousands of them every month. And every month they can only really sign maybe 2% of them. It's really low, guys. So because of that, how do you stand out from those hundreds or thousands that are being submitted? One is to show them that you are working, you're trying to improve yourself in your career, and that's through taking classes. And two, if you get a referral from someone, that carries a lot more weight than you just submitting on your own. All right, fantastic. All right, moving on. Oh wow, thank you so much for the super chats here, guys. Um, uh, Tinky Panda, is that how you pronounce it? Uh, what advice do you have for a beginner actors that are a little shy? Again, acting classes I think are the best. Look, when I first started taking acting classes, I was a software developer. So, what is the kind of the stereotype of a software developer is just a guy who sits on the computer all day. And that's who I was. So I wasn't like a social butterfly or anything like that. I wasn't someone who loved to get on stage and talk to people. That's not who I was. But acting classes really helped me with that. And I know that can help a lot of other people out. Getting into, and you really have to, you have to find a good teacher as well. Not every teacher is great. So, like I said in the beginning of this, if there are acting schools that allow you to audit a class for free, take advantage of that and audit two or three or more and see which ones make you feel the most comfortable. And then those are the classes that you may want to check out. But yeah, I think acting classes are a great way to help you get over your shyness, either on stage or on camera. All right. This is great, guys. What time is it? It's 1:46. Great. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for these super chats. I really appreciate it. Uh, Shubik is asking, how do you decide on acting classes or programs across the country in the USA? What criteria do I do for research? Uh, or just go with big names, HB Studio, Bill Esper Studio, Yale. All of those are incredible. Yes, they are big names. They're incredible. I would try to get doing your research in terms of seeing people's reviews on them. Um, I can only give you my recommendations for the classes that I've ever taken, right? I can't tell you about classes that I've never taken before. So if you're looking at a particular school, you can see if you can find people who have been to those schools before, taken those classes before. I've taken classes at the Hood School of Acting in Cleveland, Ohio, and at Drama Inc. here in Atlanta, Georgia. Those are the places where I've studied the most. I really love them. They've helped me a ton, but there may be other classes that are better. I've never taken them though, so I can't really tell you. I don't think you can go wrong with people like Bill Esper. Bill Esper was a student of Sanford Meisner, and he teaches the Meisner technique, which is the acting technique that I studied in Ohio. So again, it's going to be up to you, and everybody's going to be different in terms of what exactly they're looking for in terms of the class too. So like I mentioned to other people, if they do allow you to audit or anything like that, take advantage of that. All right. KY Talk Live. I don't know who you are, but thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. I feel like I've seen you before. I've seen this YouTube handle before, so I apologize if I don't remember you. Lou, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it, man. All right, guys. MM says, "Hey Kurt, I'm from Germany, and I want to be an actress, and I'm 5. You're 5 years old." Oh, since you were 5. All right. I'm like, wow, that's amazing that there was a 5-year-old on my YouTube live. I want to, since you were 5, should you go to college before moving to the U.S. or should I take the risk? Currently, I'm 17. I'm confused and I'm scared. I totally understand you. I totally understand that you're confused and you're scared and you don't know what to do. First, let me say that, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, you don't need to move to the U.S. That's something you can do, but don't think that's your only option as far as pursuing an acting career. Remember, I had mentioned earlier that there are um, that there are movies and shows that are filmed outside of the U.S. For example, The Queen's Gambit was filmed in Germany, and there are people that audition for The Queen's Gambit in Berlin because that's where it's shot. I do Zoom coaching sessions as well, and I coach I've coached 2 people that live in Germany, and they've told me that they've auditioned for many movies and TV shows. Here's another really cool thing, and I bet you guys didn't know this. There were at least a few episodes of the show Stranger Things. I'm sure you guys know Stranger Things, right? There are a few episodes of Stranger Things that was shot in, I want to say, Lithuania or somewhere in Europe. And then because of that, because those episodes were filmed in Europe, they were casting in Europe. And they went through casting talent agencies in Europe. So for those episodes, it would have done you no good to be in the US or to have an agent in the US. So there are opportunities that are happening all over the world. It isn't just in the US, okay? So take advantage of every opportunity that you can in Germany before you decide to make a move anywhere else, because that's a huge decision. All right. So in my opinion, if you're asking what I would do, if I were in your shoes, I would go to college. I would continue my studies. I would pursue acting in my country, in Germany, as much as I can. And then in the future, I would look into maybe moving to another country. But there are plenty of actors who make great careers without coming to the U.S. All right, awesome. Tashi, thank you so much for the super chat. This is really unbelievable, guys. All right, so Skinny Boy is asking. Oh, Skinny Boy lives in Georgia, close to Atlanta. That's awesome. And you're asking about advice on how to be on camera and voice actor. Again, taking acting classes is my best advice. Okay, so in Atlanta, my favorite acting school here is Drama Inc. DRAMAINC. DramaInc.net is their website. And then there's also Atlanta Voiceover Studio is a place where you can go to if you're specifically looking to improve your voiceover or get into voiceover work. There's also the Neighborhood Studio Atlanta, which one of my friends, Bob Carter, very accomplished voiceover actor, teaches voiceover through that studio as well. So again, getting training, that's the number one step I would recommend to anyone, whether you want to get into on-camera acting or voice acting. Okay, great. Wow, another super chat. Avery, thank you so much for the super chat. I'm planning on moving to Atlanta to start my career. What do you do in your spare time when looking for a role? How were you able to find an agent? So I was able to find an agent because I'm assuming you're asking me about my agent in Atlanta, because I already mentioned how I got my agent in Cleveland, where I first started out, which is through acting class, through my friend recommending one. I submitted myself through an agent. So I researched agencies. I just Googled talent agents in Atlanta, and I researched a bunch of them, and I looked up which ones that I wanted to submit to, which ones looked legitimate, and I wanted to submit to. And then when I did submit, what helped me was because I had acting experience already. I already had a resume and a demo reel and a professional headshot. I was able to show them that I have been a working professional actor already, albeit in a smaller market. But I show them that I've had the onset experience. I've been paid to act in multiple projects already. So those things all come into play. And that's how I was able to get an agent. One thing that you can do in your meantime before you move to Atlanta is start building your network here in Atlanta. So I would recommend to start taking classes in Atlanta right now through Zoom. A lot of those acting classes are offered via Zoom. That way, you've already met some people in Atlanta, right? You've met teachers, you've met other actors, and then that way, by the time you move here, you already have some connections, right? So again, I'm going to say Drama Inc. because that's where I took most of my acting classes here in Atlanta. Look them up, see if you can enroll in a class there, and start meeting some people, and kind of slowly get the ball rolling. All right, awesome. So, wow, Shubak, another super chat. Thank you so much. Um, another, not sure if I'm overthinking, but when I'm moving to cities in the U.S., do I need to consider getting a larger apartment with separate room at a new place to be used for my self-tape auditions? That's totally up to you, and that's totally up to what your budget is. I know people. So let me give you a couple examples. For me, I do have a separate room that I use for my self-taping. It's also my YouTube room. If you look at my YouTube videos and that gray wall that you see behind me, yeah, I have that bookshelf, and I have that Jurassic Park poster in the background. when I self-tape my auditions, I just take that poster down and I slide that bookshelf to the side, right? I make double use of that room, but I'm able to do that. But I know plenty of people who they don't. That's not within their budget to have a bigger space, and they just use their living room, and they have the things where they can move the lights from either a corner or from a closet out whenever they have an audition, and they put it back when they're done. It's totally up to you. I know people that are able to make this work at all different budget levels. You don't necessarily have to have lights even. I know people have asked, I might have missed one of those questions about how much they can get into doing self-tapes without spending a lot of money. You can just use window light. This light that's lighting me right now is coming from my window. So I'm not using professional lighting. And this looks, if I didn't have my living room in the background here, if I had just a flat wall, this lighting would be perfect for an audition. I don't have to change this. So you don't have to go out and buy anything. You don't have to go out and get fancy equipment. You don't have to go out and find a bigger apartment with a spare room. Whatever fits within your budget, you can make it work for your self-tapes. All right. Thank you so much. Jordan Blair Brown. Hey guys, listen. Jordan Blair Brown is a casting director here in Atlanta and an actress here in Atlanta. We love her. She is amazing, and we are going to be. I'm definitely going to have Jordan here on my channel to do an interview at some point because she has so much information that she can share with you. So thank you so much for being here, Jordan, and thanks for the super chat. That's awesome. You are awesome. All right. All right. Moving on, moving on, moving on. Oh, this is a good question. Okay, so Rajiv is asking, I want to ask, when you get an agent, how do you know when to update your resume or to get new headshots? How often do you have to do that? So as far as your resume, anytime that you have something to add to it, when you get a credit to add to it, or if you've taken a new class that you can add to it, anytime you have something to add to your resume, then you can just add it, and that only takes a few minutes to do that. Okay, so you don't have to wait any amount of time to update it. And most of the times, your resumes are going to be online now. Yes, you should update your physical resume, your PDF that you have, that you end up bringing to auditions, but your Actors Access, right? You have your resume listed on there, or your Casting Networks profile, like that stuff can go on your resume, and you should update those as soon as you get something to add, because those are updated as soon as you log in and make the changes. In terms of your headshots, there are many different reasons that you may want to update your headshots. Maybe your agent recommends you get maybe not totally new headshots, but maybe they want to add an extra look to all of your headshots that you have currently. Or if your look has just overall has changed, if you changed your hairstyle drastically, like if I shaved my head, right, I would need to get new headshots, because I can't show people headshots of me with hair and then decide to shave my head, and then I walk into an audition. They weren't expecting the person who has a shaved head, right? So that's a reason. Or if your look has just changed in any other way. As you get older, obviously you're going to want to get new headshots, and depending on, there's no set time limit. There's no like after 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. There's no limit. Some people look the same age for 10 years, and then they don't necessarily have to change their headshot. Some people definitely change as they age, or they gain weight, or they lose weight, or whatever. Those may be reasons why you would want to get a new headshot. So there are many reasons. There's no set, time limit, if that's what you're looking for. All right, cool. Oh wow, another Sebastian. Thanks. 10 pounds. Is that 10 British pounds? Thank you so much for that super chat. I don't know what the conversion rate, but thank you so much. You live in the UK, and you're going back to your film acting classes, which you used when you were about 10, but you stopped. You've applied to auditions on Backstage. What should be your next move? So I don't know a lot about the UK. I do know that so Backstage is used a lot in the US, but I don't know how much it's used in the UK. I know when I recently interviewed Pippa Moss, who's a UK actress, she talked about two websites: Spotlight.com, and Mandy.com. I believe those are two casting websites that are used a lot in the UK. If you don't have profiles on those, you might want to start with those. And then the other thing I would recommend you do is to reach out to Pippa Moss. So her YouTube channel is Pippa Moss UK, Pippamoss UK. Watch her YouTube videos, ask her some questions in her comments section, or reach out to her on Instagram. I know she does live coaching as well. So that may be helpful, especially because she is someone who lives in that market, works in that market. She'll be able to give you some more specific advice than I can. But I do think those websites, Spotlight and Mandy, are definitely things that you should look into in addition to Backstage, which you are already using. Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey, Melissa, good to see you on here. Thank you so much for the super chat. What factors do you consider when researching your agency in ATL? What made you choose the one you have, and what is the agency? So I'm with Houghton Talent in Atlanta, Houghton, Houghton Talent. What made me choose them? I met with I think I met with three different agencies prior to signing with Houghton, and the ultimately, my decision came down to they felt the most personable to me. They felt the most. I felt the most human connection with them, and that really meant a lot to me. It didn't feel like just a business decision. All the agencies I met with definitely were impressive in terms of they showed me that they had actors on their roster that had worked on The Walking Dead and that had worked on Stranger Things and had worked on all these recognizable shows and movies. So ultimately, it came down to when I sat down and talked to the agents at Houghton, they felt like family, and that really made me feel good and made me feel good about signing with them. And I think what you should look into there are so many aspects of an agency that you may need to consider. Whether the agency is a big, large agency, which Houghton is, or if they're a boutique agency, there are pros and cons, right? Uh, Pros of a large agency is they're recognizable within the industry, especially here in Atlanta, and then possibly outside of this market as well. But then the cons are that you may end up getting lost in the shuffle if they represent 500 actors. Whereas if you're with a smaller boutique agency, they may only represent 100 actors. That could end up, helping, right? You, because you don't get lost, they may be able to spend more time with each individual person. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing is that if the agencies have their rosters listed on their website, you may want to go in there and look for people that look like you, because if they have a ton of people that already look like you or that are your type, it may not be worth it to submit to that agency because you're going to be kind of one of many of that type. Whereas if there's an agency that doesn't have a lot of you on their roster, it may be better for you. Okay, so there are those considerations and others as well, but I think those are ones that I would definitely look out for. All right, cool. Let's see, moving on. I'm scrolling through some of these questions. Yes, Audrey Helps Actors is a very good acting podcast, and that's it. That podcast really breaks down, like, when you listen to them talk about acting. These are all actors who are working actors in the industry. You really get to hear like how much really goes into this career. There's a lot of work that goes into this career. It's not an easy career to pursue, but the rewards are worth it, in my opinion. So um, it, that's a great podcast. Audrey Helps Actors. Another great one is One Broke Actress with Sam Valentine. I was actually a guest on her podcast this past season. So check out those two podcasts. I think they're great. All right. Hey, awesome. Ashley, thank you so much for the super chat. What's your best advice for breaking down a script that's more than a one-liner? For instance, a guest star series regular. So I use the steps that I go through in my audition cheat sheet. So I go through all 10 steps, right? Because all of them are going to be important as far as like creating the relationships and understanding the scenario, also looking up the producers and the director and all that stuff, doing the research of the role, doing the research of the show and the people involved in the show, all of those things, finding out the obstacle and the conflict and all of those things in the audition cheat sheet. Is that's why I created it, is because that's the exact process that I use to go through an audition. The other thing that I would recommend is I have we recently did a live Zoom class on script analysis that I co-hosted with my good friend Kellen Boyle. He taught that class. He's great at script analysis, and that Zoom class is available. The replay or the video recording of that class is available on my website for $29 if you're interested in that. I highly recommend it. I know there are people here that are in this live chat here on YouTube that have probably were in that class, and you guys can probably give your testimonial of whether or not you like that class. But I know we got a ton of great feedback on that class. So if you're interested, go to actingcareercenter.com, click on workshops, go to the recorded workshops, and you'll see that script analysis one available. All right. Cool. Thank you so much for that super chat. Tinky Panda, you get another question. Thank you so much for the super chat, Tinky Panda. I wear glasses full time. I don't like the feel of contacts at all, but I still be able to land amazing roles. Also glares while self-taping. Let me talk about the self-taping thing first. So self-taping, make sure that your glasses have that they're anti-reflective lenses, so that helps with glare for one. And then just make sure that your light source is not directly in front of you. So if you're using window light, for instance, make sure your window is coming from the side. Right now, the window light is coming at an angle. You can see there's no glare on my glasses, right? And when I'm in my self-taping studio and I have my lights, I put my lights up where they're coming at me from an angle, not directly in front of me, and there's not going to be any glare. I know a lot of people like to use ring lights. A great way to get reflection away from ring lights is to not have them directly in front of you. Move it off to a 45-degree angle, put it a little bit higher so it's coming down, from an upward angle and off to the side. That's definitely going to remove glare. As far as your acting roles and glasses are concerned, I would the way that I would approach it is just to always wear glasses for your headshots and for your auditions, and that way people are going to see you all. That they're not going to get the wrong impression that you're someone who doesn't wear glasses, right? I wear glasses for some headshots and for some auditions depending on the role, and it doesn't change. I've never had someone. I don't think I've ever had anybody tell me that I can't wear glasses for a role. It ultimately came down to my decision. So if you wore glasses for your headshot and wore your glasses for your audition and they booked you, then I'm sure they were okay with it, right? So I don't think it would definitely hold you back. Thanks so much for that question. Awesome. We're just going over an hour, guys. So that's great. I'm going to try to end roughly around 3 o'clock. I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can before that. Or if there are no questions before that, then we may end early. Okay, so let's see. Da, 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 da. Thank you, Kier, is that how you pronounce your name, for answering some of these questions on here. Yes, you would need a work visa to work in the U.S. if you're not a citizen or a permanent resident here. The O1 visa is what we talked about earlier. Sorry, I'm getting a text here. Oh, it wasn't a text. Trying to get through some of these questions that have already been asked, so we're skipping those. Oh no! I just lost my space. No. Hold on. Let me get back. To where my. Where am I? Bear with me, guys. I lost my space and I don't want to miss some of these questions here. I think we're not going to be able to answer all of these questions because I'm barely got through 25% of them right now. But hopefully. Why did I just lost a bunch of the questions. I'm sorry, guys. I think YouTube just cut off some of the questions that we were at. So I'm gonna go to what's up here right now. Um, how can we find good monologues? I posted that earlier. If you scroll up in the chat, there's a backstage link with monologues. And I also answered a question about monologues and why I don't think they're necessarily the best thing to go through. If you missed that, then just watch the replay of this video. All right. How do you look like you are not acting? Well, that's the name of the game, right? And that's why you should take acting classes and take an acting technique and learn. Oh, that's the foundation of acting, to look like you are a real person without acting. I can't teach you how to do that just through this video. I think you really need to get in a class and work through those techniques. It takes, for many people, it can take years to really perfect that. Okay. How do I get into acting from Canada? It's really the same anywhere else. You know, start taking acting classes. Look for acting classes in your city. I know there's a lot of great opportunities in Toronto or Vancouver, but if you're in a city that's not one of those, search for them in your city or in your nearest big city. All right. I'm 19 without any experience. I live in Belgium. You want to move to LA to play in musicals as a teenager, but would you be too old? So, a lot to kind of unpack with that question. It doesn't matter really how old you actually are, it's how old you can play. So, depending on how old you look, for instance, I have a friend who's in her 30s, but she looks young enough to still play a teenager. So, depends on how old you look, not how old you actually are. So, that's number one. Number two is if you want to, don't worry so much about, missing your quote unquote window of acting in projects. Uh, I really encourage everybody to look at their careers in the long term. Okay, look at your careers in terms of what you can accomplish throughout in a career. So if you're 19 now, think about what you could potentially accomplish from now until you're 60 or 70 or 80 or whenever you decide to retire from acting. So just because your career doesn't necessarily get started at 19 or 20 or 21 doesn't mean you will never have a successful career, right? So if you don't get a chance to play a teenager, that doesn't mean your career's over, right? Then you may get a chance to play an amazing 20-something year old, or an amazing 30-something year old, or amazing 40-something year old, all the way up until you decide to retire. Okay. All right, fantastic. Wow, Connor, thank you so much for the super chat. 21-year-old actor from Detroit, 1.5 years of training. Should I move to Atlanta this year or try to get a SAG card in Michigan before leaving? Oh, great question. Please don't join the union before you're ready. There are great benefits to joining the union, but there are also some drawbacks as well. And I think for a lot of newer actors, I think the drawbacks outweigh the actual benefits, especially when you come to Atlanta, which is a right to work state. In a right to work state, there are many more benefits to not being in the union, in fact. That being said, look, I am a union member. I'm a proud union member. I love my union and I support the union. But I have to be honest with people who are new. You don't want to join the union too early. You can definitely hurt your career by joining the union too early. So, uh, regardless of when you decide to move to Atlanta, if that is in your plans, I don't think, in my opinion, again, my opinion, I don't think it helps your career to join the union right now in Michigan if you're coming to Atlanta. All right. All right. Moving on. A lot of questions about monologues. We already answered that. When should we get an agent? Already kind of answered that. How do I get an acting from Canada? Already answered that. How can I get auditions for Netflix? I have some acting experience. I just need to do my resume and headshot at backstage. Worth it? Acting masterclass, is it worth it? If you're asking about masterclass, like the Samuel L. Jackson classes and Ron Howard class and things like that, as far as worth it, that's up to you, depending on what you think is helpful to you. They don't go on a resume, again, because they aren't interactive classes, but they can help you. It's just like reading books, right? I recommend reading books. I recommend getting any sort of acting knowledge. So those classes may be worth it, they may not be. As far as getting Netflix auditions, hey, Sergio, what's up, dude? Um, I'll get to your question in a second. Sergio is a good friend of mine. He lives in LA right now. Um, Fantastic actor and also a headshot photographer. So, hey, if you guys live in LA, you're looking for headshots, look up Sergio Sanchez Photography um, on Google or Sergio. Why don't you just put your website down in the chat if you're looking for headshots? Hit him up. But back to your question, John, about Netflix. So you're very unlikely going to find Netflix auditions posted publicly on like Backstage or Actors Access or anything like that. The vast majority of major movies and television shows are going to post their auditions to talent agents, and then the agents are going to give those auditions to actors, agents or managers, or some sort of representation. The big reason for this is because there are hundreds and thousands of actors trying to pursue this. And if they posted their auditions publicly, they would get bombarded by so many submissions from actors that they can't handle. So they need an agent to weed out all the people who are not serious about it. Right? This is again why it's important to have, when you submit to an agent, you got to show them that you are serious about your career, showing them you have a professional headshot, that you've taken acting classes, that you know how to audition, that you know how to self-tape. Like all of these things are important when you apply for an agency because they want to be able to submit the best actors possible to casting directors for these types of shows. So, yeah, it depends on to answer your question of how to get auditions for Netflix. I mean, these are steps that you have to get to in your career. I definitely would not have been able to get an audition for Netflix in the beginning of my career. I have been auditioning for Netflix quite a lot recently, but that's because I have slowly built my resume over the years. It's about taking those small steps, guys. Let me show. Let me share. Can I share my screen here with you really quick? I want to show you a graphic that I saw that someone shared on my social media or on their social media. So look at that. So I really love this picture, and the title of it is The Importance of Small Steps. And the people that are on that ladder on the right, they're reaching too high in the beginning. So there are people that in the very beginning of their careers, they're trying to get auditions for Netflix shows and Marvel. And that's just rarely going to happen when you don't have the you haven't built trust with the casting directors yet. Casting directors need to be able to trust you to give you the big auditions. So you start small by booking. You're doing unpaid work. You're doing student films. You're doing plays. You're doing short films and independent films, or making films on your own, writing your own projects and creating those. That's going to get you those opportunities in the future where agents are going to start taking you seriously. They're going to sign you. Casting directors are going to start taking you seriously. They're going to give you auditions for the bigger and bigger projects. I have only very recently, I've been doing this for 13 years. I have only very recently started getting auditions for leading roles in movies and television shows. Only very recently, after 13 years. Because I have slowly, in that picture that I showed you, I've been climbing that ladder, taking those small steps, step by step by step by step over the past 13 years to get me to a point where I built enough trust and shown that I can do roles that are smaller and then a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where they're offering me auditions for the lead roles. Okay? All right. Is high school theater a good place to start acting? Absolutely, it's a good place to start acting. Any sort of theater is a great place to start acting. If you can get involved in theater, you can get involved in high school plays, or whether it's in school or outside of school, all of that stuff is great experience for you to get started in your acting career. All right. When should I get an agent? We already kind of covered that. It's different for everybody, and there, it's something a conversation you should be having with your acting teachers, because they're the ones that are really going to know your acting ability. All right. Is 13 a good age to start acting? There's no right or wrong age to start acting. You could start at 10, you can start at 13, you can start at 26 like I did, you can start at 33, 55. Doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong age to start. All right. Stella Adler's school in New York. How effective do you think 10-week courses are? There's no, again, I've heard of Stella Adler's acting school. Stella Adler's technique is someone that is something that a lot of people follow and a lot of professional actors have trained under. As far as how effective a 10-week course are, it depends on the course. Maybe this course is a brilliant 10-week course. I'm sure there are other 10-week courses that are not as good. Do as much research as you can on the course. See if you can find people that have taken the course, that can recommend it. If they have reviews on the course, or if they have reviews on the school. I imagine Stella Adler's acting school is probably pretty good, even though I've never taken classes there. But I would think that it's pretty good. All right. A lot of questions here that are repeats. Muscle cars. Thanks for your question. Is it recommended non-speaking background roles to not enter it on resumes, even though these types of roles still get COVID tested fittings, rehearsals, big effort? Yes. You're right. You do still have to do a lot of work to be in the background as a background actor, but you're also right. They do not go on an acting resume. Your professional acting resume for film and television should only have your principal roles, where you are booked as a principal role. Doesn't necessarily have to mean a speaking role, but it's just a non-background role. Those are the ones that go on an acting resume. Uh, if you do put background work on a resume, it could backfire on you because it looks unprofessional in terms for the people in the industry, casting directors and agents. It looks like it looks amateurish, right? So yeah, background roles do not go on an acting resume. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do background work. I highly recommend people who have never done any acting before, yeah, do some background work because it's an easy way to kind of get your feet wet, understand how it works, understand what it takes to be on a set, what it's like to be on a set. It's great experience, but after a while, if you want to start auditioning for speaking roles, then you kind of move up and you start kind of graduate out of doing background roles. All right. I've taken 4 acting classes so far. How do I know I should start applying for agencies? And that, again, that's different for everybody. Everybody's gonna, grow at a different pace. So unless someone really knows and sees your acting and sees your abilities, they won't really be able to tell you whether or not it's time for you. That's why I recommend you ask your acting teachers. So if you've taken 4 acting classes, ask your most recent acting teacher what they think of your abilities and if they recommend that you start applying for agencies right now. A lot of these are repeat questions. I don't know if YouTube is doing this or if people are just asking the same question over and over again. Do you have immigration lawyers to help people out of the USA? I'm not 100%. I mean, you probably, if you're trying to immigrate, you probably do need to talk to an immigration lawyer, especially about like the O1 visa, if that's what you're trying to do. But again, I'm not an immigration expert, so you'll have to do your research on that yourself. Where can I start looking for auditions? Talk to the people in your acting class. Talk to your acting teachers. Wherever you are, locally is where you should be searching for auditions. There are rarely global auditions, so there's not like there's a website where you can look for auditions all over the world and start auditioning for them. Actors Access is a website that you can look for auditions, but it depends on where you live. So I live in Atlanta. I can search Actors Access for auditions in Atlanta, but there's I would start with your local community. Ask your teachers, ask your other acting students in your classes. That's the best place to find that information to get you started. What's your advice for high school or college students in their pursuit of becoming professional actors? Great question, and similar advice to anybody else. Start with training. That's number one. Become Try to get training to become the best actor that you can be. And training doesn't end, right? Training isn't just you take acting classes for a few months or a year or whatever. Training is ongoing. I've taken acting classes every year for my 13 years as an actor. Continue to try to improve. Find things in my acting that I want to improve every year. Look at professional basketball players. They still practice. They go to practice every day. I don't know if it's every day, but at least every week they practice, right? Because they want to get better. They want to improve their craft. And same thing with acting. There's no point where you should look at yourself and say, "Oh, I'm done learning how to become a better actor," right? Unless you have won 15 Oscars, you probably can still get better, right? All right. A lot of these questions are exact repeats. I'm really not understanding what's happening here. Uh, Give me 1 second, guys. I'm trying to scroll through some of these repeat questions. Doesn't matter if I have purple dyed hair. It doesn't matter in the extent that will people consider you for acting roles? No, because there are people in the world with dyed hair, and there are characters on TV with dyed hair, and in movies with dyed hair. What happens is that it could potentially limit your castability in certain roles, right? Um, I have a friend who had she decided at one point to shave her head. So that's a big change, right? It's kind of like thinking about dyeing your hair. She shaved her head, and that made her more castable in certain roles and less castable in other roles. So having purple hair definitely makes you more castable in like the edgier type of roles that where a character would have purple hair, but would make you less castable in others. And it's a decision. There are pros and cons of doing that. Um, and I'll tell you, my friend who shaved her head, it turned out to be a good decision because she started working a lot more after she shaved her head. Now that's not I'm not trying to tell everybody go out and shave your heads, but it worked for her. And for some people, you'll have to weigh those pros and cons if you want to change your look to target specific types of roles that you may want to play. All right. Um, Thank you, Panda. Thank you so much for the super chat again. Uh, what are your thoughts on advice for actors with visible tattoos? Um, One visible tattoo on my arm. Can they be successful? Absolutely. You can continue to pursue acting with visible tattoos. You just have to disclose it and tell them. A lot of times when people have hold casting calls, they'll ask you if you have any visible tattoos, and all you have to do is tell them. It's not going to hold you back because they'll account for it, right? What they'll do is maybe if they don't want the character to have a tattoo, they'll dress the character. They'll have you wear a long sleeve shirt so that they don't show it. One of the things that you may run into a problem with, and this is something where I don't have this experience because I don't have tattoos, but you may have to do your own research on this. But my understanding of the tattoo is that the actual design of a tattoo belongs to the artist. Even though it's on your body, the design still belongs to the tattoo artist. And because of that, what I've heard sometimes is that if the image of your tattoo ends up becoming visible on in a movie or a TV show, they actually have to get a release signed by the tattoo artist in order to have that shown, or they could get sued. I'm not 100% sure on that. You may have to do your own research, but that could be a reason why people are weary about tattoos. But again, just being honest with them, telling them that you have the tattoo, they'll work around it if they want to hire you. It's been done. I've seen it done all the time, whether they either cover it with a sleeve or they cover it with makeup. Cool. Riku Sam, thanks so much for the super chat. Uh, how can I get auditions in England like PBS Masterpiece if I live in the US? Or do I have to go live over there? It's very difficult again to audition for things in other countries. This was a question that I answered before of people living in other countries wanting to audition for the U.S. If you're in the U.S. and you want to audition for other countries, similar thing. There's probably work restrictions, right? Work permit restrictions, and then there's probably the budget restrictions of if the productions have the budget to fly people over and put them up in hotels and things like that. So that's something you'll have to research on your own about those other projects. It's going to be project specific too. Some projects may have the budget to do that, but other projects will not. All right, all right. Does an acting career mean traveling a lot? I live with my grandparents at the moment, and and you don't want to stress them out too much. It can, but you don't have to. So every time you are given an audition opportunity, there are they will tell you where that production is being made or is being filmed, and you can just turn down opportunities that require you to travel. I've done that. I've done that before where they require me to be in another state or another city, and it's not worth it for me to travel, or if it's just too much of an inconvenience, or if I have something that um, if I have something else going on that I don't have the time to spend traveling, then I'll just turn down that audition. And you're well within your rights to do that as an actor, to turn down any job for any reason. So you can just audition for the things that are happening in your city. So there's no 100% requirement for you to travel. You do what you're willing to do. All right. If you can only afford one class, should you first take a class on script analysis or on camera? It's really up to you on what class you want to start taking. Um, in my opinion, I think the most important class is a foundations class if you haven't taken any acting before. So a technique class, Meisner technique, Stella Adler, Chubbuck, Stanislavski, um, method acting, like all of these types of techniques that give you the foundation are, in my opinion, the most important. But I know plenty of successful actors that started with script analysis, that started with scene study, that started with on camera. So it's not like you have to do one or the other. It's up to you and what you feel most comfortable with and what you would like to do. There's really not a wrong answer here. Laura, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Have you met actors that also try to get into acting while being in school, like med school, law school? Yeah, yeah. I don't know necessarily about med school or law school, but I know people that are in college that have been in grad school for in other professions. Um, and I also know people that are acting that are medical professionals, that are nurses and doctors. Do I know any lawyers? I do. Yeah, I know someone who finished. Now that I think about it, I do have a friend who finished law school while pursuing his acting career and is now. Um, uh, I don't know if he had passed his bar exam yet or not, but like people have been able to balance all of these things and still try to pursue their career. That being said, I know some people that have been in college and then uh, through their careers basically got booked on a show that took a lot of their time. They had to drop out of school for a while, not completely, but they had to leave school for a semester to work on this show. And then after the show was over, they went back to school to finish their degree. So people have been able to make that work. Yeah. Uh, Thanks again for the super chat. Any tips for auditioning for acting schools, please? If you're asking about auditioning for like the types of acting programs at drama schools, like in the UK, or college programs or university programs in acting. That's not something that I did. I went to private acting studios, so it's not my forte. I would recommend searching for some people who have done that. I mentioned Pippa Moss before, who is somebody I interviewed on my channel, and she has her own YouTube channel called Pippa Moss UK. Uh, her her advice is not necessarily only for actors in the UK, but she did go through the drama school route. So her experience is in auditioning for drama school, and she coaches people who are auditioning for drama school. So I would definitely check out her channel for that type of advice, or reach out to her directly. Does high school drama even matter? Sure. I mean, if you want to uh, pursue acting and you're in high school and you have the opportunity to be in high school drama or high school plays, I think it's a great place to start. That being said, if you're already graduated high school and you never took any of those, that doesn't mean you can never become an actor. I think any way that you can get experience is helpful and can help you. But if you went through high school and you didn't take those classes, that doesn't mean that your career's over. That just means you can start now and start taking classes now outside of school, right? So it it can matter. It doesn't. You don't have to do it, but it can definitely help. 20 years old, diagnosed with alopecia, so I'm bald. Do you think being bald will be an advantage or a disadvantage? It can be both, right? It's just like anything else. There are pros and cons. Uh, Having a, like I already mentioned, my friend who decided to shave her head for her career. There are pros and cons, and there are certain roles that you're going to be right for being bald, and there are certain roles that you're not going to be right for. So lean in towards those roles that you're going to be right for, and that's definitely going to help you in your career. There's all kinds of different characters. All you have to do, look, is just watch movies and watch TV shows, and when you see people that look like you in appearance, whether it's hairstyle, whether it's the way you dress, whether it's your body type or whatever, when you see people like that, that should give you some confidence that you can do this too, right? That there are people that are like you in this profession. Follow their careers. Look them up on IMDb. Look what other types of characters that they have played, so that you can get and make an informed decision on what else you can kind of pursue for your career, right? Awesome. 2:38 now. We got about 20 minutes left here, guys. So I'm going to try to get through as many of these questions. I know I'm going to miss a lot of questions because there were over 200 of you guys on here, which was awesome. But I'm going to try to get through as many as I can. All right. How do I know that an agent is scamming me? That's a really good question. So, number one, I can answer for the agents in the U.S., Canada, and really in the UK. I believe I don't know how agents in every other country works, but here, agents only agents should not be taking money from you up front. So if you apply for an agent and they say, okay, we will represent you, pay us $500 or whatever to represent you, then that is a scam. 100% that's a scam. Uh, the way agents work here in the US, legitimate agents only make money when you make money. They take a commission. So they take anywhere between a 10 or 20% commission depending on the type of job. So, for example, if I book a role on a TV show and I work for one day on the TV show, and let's say I make $1,000 for that day, my agent takes a 10% commission. So when I get paid, I give $100 of my $1,000 check to my agent, and I keep 900. They keep 1,000, or they keep 100. Right? That's the only time an agent makes money is when you make money. So if there's any other time when they're trying to charge you, then that's kind of scammy. Now I have heard of agencies, and I've had agents like this in the past that will charge like a small web fee to put you on their website roster or something like that. I don't love that. I don't really agree with that. But if it's like $25 or $50 or something like that, I think that's understandable and acceptable because they have to pay someone to do all that stuff. But if they're charging you hundreds of dollars or something just to start working with them, that's an absolute scam. Or if it's in the thousands, it's definitely a scam. Okay, so that's the big thing to look out for. Benita, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Is it possible for Europeans to become successful in America if I move there and have been taking acting classes? Absolutely. There are a lot of Europeans that are successful in America. A lot of foreign actors have been successful in America. So you can definitely become successful. Uh, that being said, there are no guarantees like anything else. But is it possible? Yeah, of course it's possible. Just the fact that you are European does not hold you back at all. Right? I'm of Asian descent, and I moved here when I was very young with my parents. But of course, like, I can't run away from the fact that I am Asian. It's clear when people look at me, but I'm able to be successful here in the U.S. So people from Europe or any other country can definitely become successful as well. All right. So how do acting classes work? Is it eventually getting some transcripts that you learn as homework and then train that by practicing in front of the teacher? And how is the schedule most likely? Yeah, every acting class is going to be a little bit different. Not all acting classes are the same, but for the most part, yeah. You are in the beginning, you're working on, in the beginning, a lot of acting classes, when they're teaching you foundations, you're not working with scripts yet. You're just doing exercises, and I can't really explain the exercises here on the Zoom, but if you audit an acting class, you should be able to see them. First, you work with exercises to get you out of your head, because a big thing with actors is they're always thinking in their heads. To get you out of your head and to be free and to allow yourself to be in the moment. After that, eventually you do get to the point where you're given a script, and you and another actor perform a scene, and then you get critiqued, and the teacher will tell you how to improve and all that type of stuff. And the schedule, it really depends on the class. Some classes meet once a week, some do twice a week, some do more than that. So that really depends on the particular class you're looking for. And if you're worried about the schedule and if that works with your, balancing that with the rest of your life, then just look for classes that fit your schedule. If you can only fit 1 week or 1 day a week into your rest of your class, then yeah, then you can look for a class that only fits within your schedule. Okay. Hmm. I'm trying to scroll through these questions. Bear with me here. I'm really not understanding what's going on with the live chat, because it's like a lot of these questions are repeating over and over and over again. Or it's like the same 5 questions that are repeated over and over again. I'm not sure why. Okay, so Ellen is asking, I was wondering if you can only submit to one agency, or you can have more than one agent, or is it specific? So there's many different ways that this can happen. I think if you're looking for an agent, you can definitely apply or submit to multiple ones at a time, and then, but in your region, most of the time in your region, you may only be allowed to have the one agent. So maybe you apply to 3 of them. It's like applying to a job, right? Um, you may apply to 3 different jobs at the same time, and then you can only be with one. But in the region now, in certain markets, they may have different agents for different types of acting. So you may, in LA, for instance, Los Angeles, you would have a different agent for commercials and a separate agent for film and TV. For in most smaller markets, though, usually the agent represents you across the board: commercials, film and TV, industrials, all of that stuff. Uh, um, that being said, you can also have agents in different markets. So I have an agent in Ohio. Oh, that was my alarm to tell me I only have 15 minutes left. All right, so Um, I had an agent in Ohio when I moved down to Atlanta. I got an agent in Atlanta, but I was able to keep my agent in Ohio because they represent me in different markets. They don't really overlap. My agents in Atlanta are not submitting me for jobs in Ohio. My agents in Ohio are not submitting me for jobs in Atlanta. But usually you can only have one agent per region, um, and then depending on like LA and the bigger markets may have separate agents depending on the type of acting work. All right. Do-do-do-do. Where can I find specific talent agencies online? Again, do a Google search for agents in your city or your state. There are thousands and thousands of agents. There's no central website for agencies. It's not going to help you to find an agent in another state if you live, 500 miles away. Okay, so do a search for your state or your city. My best recommendation though is to ask your acting teachers. They're the ones going to be able to tell you who's a good agent, who's not. All right. Do-do-do. I've seen you do acting workshops here and there. Is it possible for people with little to no experience to take part? Oh, you're asking about my acting workshops. Yes, Sandbox Man. Thank you for the question. So my Zoom workshops that I do, they're available to people with all different experience levels, especially the ones that I do about like the business. That's especially really geared for people who are kind of newer to the industry because I talk about the business side and learning about how to approach this career from a business standpoint. So yeah, it's there's no you don't have to be any certain experience level to take those workshops. If ones do if I do ever have one that requires you to have some sort of experience, I'll definitely mention that, and I'll tell people that before they register. All right, trying to scroll through all these questions that are repeats here. Bear with me. I know this is really boring to watch me scroll through questions. Uh, do you need to go to college and get a 2 to 4 year degree, or can you just take acting classes in an acting school studio? So first of all, yeah, that's a great question, Lucky Owl. You don't need to get a 4 year degree. You can. I know people that have gone to college for acting, gotten a degree in acting, and have been successful. That being said, I also know people like myself, for example. I didn't get a 2 to 4 year degree. I just went to private acting studios, and I've been successful as well. So there are many different ways to approach this. There's no one right way to do it. Do what you feel best is for you, what you feel most comfortable doing. Uh, I um, I don't think there's yeah, like I said, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. All right, to do slating on an iPhone when they ask you to pan up and down or pull back for a full body shot. That's a great question. So those of you who don't know what a slate is, usually when they ask you to self-tape an audition, you record yourself doing in the audition, but then they also ask you to record a slate, which is just you saying your name and sometimes your height or the name of your agency or where you live to the camera. And then a lot of times they'll ask for a full body shot. And sometimes they'll ask you to zoom out or they'll ask you to pan up and down. You don't have to do that. Let me just quickly clarify exactly what they're looking for in the slate. They need the information that they ask for. So if they ask you to say your name and height, they need that information. And they need to see a full body shot in any way, shape, or form that you can provide it. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a pan up and down. They say that because it might be the way that they do it, or they may ask you to zoom out. But if I'm recording by myself and I don't have someone to help me, then all I will do is I will cut. I'll do either I'll record this slate as a full body shot wide. I don't pan out. And I'll insert it into my audition. I know a lot of people that also just that use a photo. They just take a picture and put it into the editing software and use that as their full body shot. That's all they're looking for. The fact that it needs to pan up and down or zoom out, that's not important. The important thing is that you show the full body shot in any way that you can. That's the only thing that's necessary. Okay, so don't worry about doing the panning or zooming so much. All right. Uh, would a fine arts degree be better than getting a non-college acting classes? Again, kind of like I answered this question earlier. There's no real right or wrong answer to this. Maybe there are some directors out there that are going to look at it and prefer, they may like it that you have a fine arts degree, but there are plenty of other directors that are not going to care. So it's really up to you on how you want to pursue your acting education. What happens during an audition? How do you be a professional in an audition? Um, that's a lot for me to answer in just this Zoom session. I encourage you to take an audition class. That's actually one of the best classes I ever took in my career, is to get into a class where we practice auditioning every week, where we practice getting in front of the camera and getting in front of people and get used to that environment, because it can definitely make people nervous. It can make people feel weird. And the more that you practice it, the more it's going to feel normal. It's kind of like, it's like the first time that you learn to ride a bike or the first time that you learn to drive. I remember the first time I got behind the wheel of my car to learn how to drive. You're super nervous. You've never done it before. You don't want to screw up. You don't want to crash, right? But after a while, you do it more and more, and it starts to feel normal. Now, I've been auditioning for 13 years. I've done almost 1,000 auditions in my career, over 900 auditions. So now I feel very comfortable with auditions. But definitely when I first started, I felt nervous. So get into an audition class. That can definitely help you. But also uh, practicing auditioning by learning lines at home by yourself, recording yourself with your phone or whatever camera that you have. That can also help you. Just any way that you can get in front of the camera and practice that type of thing can definitely help you with your auditioning technique. All right. I wonder if this was a glitch that all these questions just keep repeating over and over and over again. Um, Hopefully, next time it won't happen. Melissa, thank you so much for your awesome review of the workshops. I have not seen another new question yet. They're just all repeat questions for now. Um, Okay. I think that's it, guys. I'm probably missing some questions here towards the end, but I do have to go in a few minutes anyway. So I think we'll just end it there. Thank you so much for joining. We still have 157 people on here, but we will. I know we had over 200 at one point. So again, thank you so much for being here. Um, how do you get free movie scripts? I did. I posted a link to those free movie scripts on scriptslug.com. SCRIPT scriptslug.com. But yeah, thank you so much. Oh man, now I see more and more stuff coming through. Unfortunately, I do have to leave. But thank you so much. We'll try to do another one of these in the future. Again, if you are brand new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss future lives. And also go to actingcareercenter.com, download my free audition cheat sheet if you haven't already. Subscribe to my email list through downloading that cheat sheet. I'll be announcing future Zoom workshops and things like that. And yeah, that's it. So thank you again, guys, for being here. Thank you again for being part of the over 50,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel now. We're going to try to get that to 100,000 by the end of the year, and then we will be celebrating again. So awesome. Thank you. Oh, wow. Thank you again for this super chat. Good acting schools, instructors in Atlanta. I already mentioned uh, Drama Inc. is the one that I highly recommend in Atlanta. All right, guys. All right. I think that is it. Signing off. See you guys later.